Welcome back to the Total Succession Show. There is growing tension in the advisor industry right now. A huge number of advisors are approaching retirement, but the next generation is not entering the profession fast enough to replace them. So, today we're pulling together insights from three of our past guest conversations to explore what happens when advisors retire faster than they're replaced. And most importantly, what firms can do now to prepare for that shift. This is the Succession Crunch.
Welcome to the Total Succession Show. I'm your host, Tyson Ray, joined by Kim Cochenour. We're glad you're here. Subscribe at totalsuccession.com/podcast and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. Today's conversation just might be the nudge you need to start preparing for what's next.
Jackie Wilke from First Trust said it the best. The industry is facing a real demographic challenge.
J.D. Powers and Cerulli estimate that between 37 to 46% of advisors plan to retire in the next 10 years. So that's a big number. And a lot of those folks do not have a succession plan in place. They might have a loose idea of what they'd like to do, or sometimes life happens and you thought you had a runway that isn't there
You
anymore.
don't have anymore. Yep.
And nothing was in place. We also have this problem of, with the amount of advisors retiring, we're not backfilling that with the next gen talent. So we have to figure out, how do we develop talent in our industry, and how do we make sure that advisors have a plan in place so that there isn't a fire sale or suddenly a last minute trying to put something together that's not a good fit, because at the end of the day, succession planning is about the client. Yes, it's about the business, of course, but the point of having a succession plan is continuity for your clients and continuity for the people that matter most to them. I love how one advisor puts it. He says, when I think about succession plan, I think about it as my last act of client service. And that should be an approach that a lot of people take. But hey, sometimes time flies and all of a sudden you're in a position, you're like, shoot, I'm not where I need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like the industry, for as long as I've been in it, which is getting longer these days, keeps seeking out the Gen 2 to be the Rainmaker, not realizing that the team at some point needs caretakers for these clients. And that's one of the reluctance, I think, of people being hired or people not making it, is because somehow they're supposed to do what the cold callers were doing, or the movies did in the 80s and 90s, that they're out there pounding the pavement, knocking on doors and getting money. And it's not really what you should be thinking about in succession. Some of it's who's going to be taking care of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's nothing wrong with a lifestyle practice. You might just wanting to be setting your clients up for relationship managers who, when you retire, they're going to take care of your clients and continue to care for those clients. And, like most things in life, what got us here isn't necessarily going to get us to where we want to be. And everything's different now, right? How we grew that kind of Rainmaker model of the past, it's different now because the investor is different, the environment is different, AI and technology are massively disrupting our industry, democratization, commoditization, and preferences are shifting, both from the investor and the ones you'd want to grow with, as well as the advisor and who wants to join our industry, who wants to join those teams. So I think there's nothing wrong if you do find that traditional Rainmaker, but I think we just need to redefine what rainmaking means. Maybe not using that term, because some of the studies and the things that I've talked with the next gen advisors about is this aversion to sales. They don't want to feel salesy. And I think there's a way to reposition the Rainmaker as, you are business development. You are growing, but it's not because you're selling something, it's because you're serving someone.
So, if fewer advisors are entering the industry while more are preparing to retire, the traditional model of a single Rainmaker running the entire practice becomes much harder to sustain. And that's why many firms out there, and many of the most successful firms, are shifting towards a team based practice. Duncan MacPherson has worked with advisory firms for decades on exactly this evolution.
I've been saying for years now, but the world's really catching up to this mindset that the more technology creeps into our lives, the more the human touch matters. The more that becomes an unmet need, because there are so many advisors that go all in just with technology and AI, artificial intelligence. They forget about the emotional intelligence and the fact that you're managing a relationship, you're managing a person with hopes and dreams and things that keep them up at night and all of that. So again, just to close that, the more somebody embraces the science of practice management, business development, and all of these other drivers, the more they're liberated to go into those unmet needs and those big areas that make an advisor fee worthy and therefore make the client feel comfortable. Hey, I'm in good hands. I'm on a good path. So I'm not surprised that you hit on that, but that is massive.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a succession of not looking for who's the rainmaker that's going to replace you listening to this. It's hiring what we call the caretaker, who is going to basically come in and have more empathy or have more desire to interact with that client on a relational level to be able to continue the relationship you had, even though you were the rainmaker. And the mistake I think too many advisors are doing is thinking they got to hire the junior rainmaker, when really, to maintain the practice, to free yourself
Okay.
up, it's having somebody else care for these clients.
So, if the future of advisory firms depends on teams, systems, and continuity, not just the solo rainmaker advisor, it also changes how advisors can think about their own careers. Because more and more advisors aren't waiting until the very end of their careers to start thinking about their succession. When we spoke to Scott Danner, he said many of the advisors are exploring these changes today are actually happening much earlier in their journey, himself included.
How about we live our legacy and we're not waiting to leave it? Too many times advisors in our industry grow a business 20, 30, 40 years and sit on that value, waiting that one day maybe they'll sell it. And guess what? It's like waiting for the perfect prince or princess to kiss you and come out of the dream. And all of a sudden you're in this a fairy tale ending. Very rarely does that exist. What exists is finding the right partners, growing together, building together. And when you look back on your life, you lived a legacy. You didn't leave one. You're automatically going to leave one because you lived it your whole life. I love everything Tyson just said because it's so true.
Well, and Scott, what we're kind of seeing is, and we're hearing from other experts in the industry, is that it's not just the 60, 70-year-old advisor looking to make the transition. It's someone in, say, your age demographic who's looking to do that too, but they're kind of just procrastinating to just get it done. Where I'm sure you deal with this a lot in the M&A space. How do you kind of give that advisor that encouragement or light a fire under their what to get it done?
Yeah, and what a great point, Kim. The funniest thing is, and probably my most surprising attribute, when I started building um, Freedom Street's M&A platform, it was all focused on retiring advisors. Okay. And once advisors get to a certain age in this business, like they just don't want to leave. I mean, they start having grandchildren. They're like coming into the office and halfway working, and like some are really doing it and dialing it up as they get older. But most of them, their succession plan is attrition. It's like, okay, I'm going to be in the office a little less, and then I'm just going to watch my business. Maybe it'll die a little bit, but I'm still making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I golf every day or whatever that is, right? So I kind of had this vision that that's what it was going to be. Well, what's interesting is since I made the move and all the media attention that comes with that, and all the dynamics, I'm seeing 45 to 60-year-olds is the number one group that are reaching out to us. And so they're actually trying to live their legacy. They've been doing this 20 plus years. They're kind of tired of doing it the same way. And they're saying, you know what? What if I could have more time with my kids? What if I could stop building this for the future, but I could build it for right now and pivot so that my future is only the stuff I love doing. I love referencing Arthur Brooks's book From Strength to Strength because it's a phenomenal read. And it talks about how in life we have to make that transition from doing to kind of teaching and sharing our wisdom at a certain point in time. And if you're not doing that, you find yourself doing, and you're burnt out all the time. And you're in this mousetrap you don't love. So we're seeing a trend. I'm getting 7 to 10 new leads a week on average, attracting. We are not recruiting. I'm a horrible recruiter. I don't have any patience to wait for you to make your decision because I'm not going to coddle you for 11 years. Like, I don't care. I care about what you want now. We're problem solving. So if you and your son are in this industry, and you don't know how you're going to sell your business to your son because he can't afford it and you can't afford to sell it to him, I know a way to do that. We can help you monetize it today. Your son can service it. You can hand over assets. He can earn the next chapter. You can grow it with strategic partnership, and you both can build something new today. Oh, by the way, he doesn't have to come in the business. What if you want to do real estate and you take some of your net worth you just created and you go build a different business with your son while you still do what you're great at, and you're not making your son or daughter get into the very business you are because it's all you know? Like, these are problems we're solving for the 45 to 60-year-olds, so they're not waiting until their kids are 35, 40 years old, and now they want to do something with their children. Like, that's a really cool thing. Now, after 60, there's still a lot of people after 60 that are interested in this, and they're prepared and they're ready. And 60 is young, by the way, especially in our industry, it's young. But 60-year-olds do start to be less and less interested because they just are like, I'm just going to glide this thing out. I don't need to change anything.
So we put together this acronym and I already referenced part of it, which is called SPACE, which is seeing what's out there, what you want to do with yourself. It's almost like the advisor needing to do the plan, right? Because the plumber's pipes leak. The financial advisors sometimes don't have their plan in place. They're too focused on everybody else's. It's then preparing, right? What that decision is going to be. It's acting on that decision. It's committing once you're on the other side of it, and it's exiting. So if we could talk for a second about what does preparing look like? So you've kind of decided, and I want to kind of focus on what the industry is kind of calling the aggregator space. Where here I'm going to kind of roll up to a Steward Partners like firm that's going to basically give me that whole back office. How does someone start preparing themselves to basically execute that decision? What are those kind of steps that you would tell them that they need to go through?
That's a great question. I think it's really interesting because in 2016, I started Freedom Street Partners. In 2018, I joined a group called Genius Network, and my first group, which Dan Sullivan and all of those guys are all in it. Ben Hardy, who wrote Who Not How with Dan, they're all in Genius. It's a great group of people. And my first meeting, I sat in a room, and the first thing that I listened to was a panelist of people that sold their business for hundreds of millions of dollars or more, and what they were doing to prepare, Tyson. And they made a comment that we should always be ready to sell. And I wrote notes down that day and I said, I do not have a business that's ready to sell. Now I'm 2 years in, but what do I need to do to best prepare my business to be either a strategic partner and merge with someone, or potentially even to sell? And you want to be ready to sell at all times, because if an emergency happens or something happens in your family, or there's just life happens. And I thought, I'm going to build this business to sell at all times. I hired consultants. I became a prophet in my business, not the God. So what does that mean? That means that if you're the only one that can answer questions, and I know your team, Tyson, I know you, Kim, I know that you guys have been building this profit level business for a long time. It's it's scalable, it's repeatable, it's based on systems and processes. That's what makes your company more valuable. So how are you doing right now in that space? And that's the kind of thing that I started to evaluate in my own practice to prepare. Then I hired the legal team to actually organize the documents. Were all my documents dialed in? Were all my succession plans dialed in? Did I have all the contracts right from my first buy to my last one? Guess what? There were lots of mistakes I made. So I cleaned it all up. And by doing all that, by the time I went to market, I was dialed in. We were a hot commodity. Like, we had 38 IOIs like on day one. People were ready to buy us. And I think that was a very, very valuable thing. But it all came from preparation. It was preparing your team, preparing your business, preparing your clients, and making sure that everybody is working towards a common goal of increasing value, increasing the service model and the deliverables, and always looking to be better every day.
When you put all of these perspectives together from Jackie, Duncan, and Scott, the bigger picture actually becomes more clear. The advisors who are succeeding through the succession crunch will be the ones building businesses, developing their people, and creating continuity for their clients long before their day comes. Tyson, any final thoughts for our listeners?
The whole purpose of these podcasts is basically, can we share information? Can we make a difference in each other's lives so we make informed decisions that we don't regret in the future?
Exactly, Tyson. Thank you. If today's conversation got you thinking about your own succession plans, Our inboxes are always open. Connect with me or Tyson on LinkedIn, send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you and see how we might be able to help. We'll be back soon with more conversations like this.
These conversations are designed to support your next move, however close or far it may be. Tap subscribe and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. I've wrestled with these things myself, and that's exactly why I created something to help you do it with less stress and more direction. My book, Total Succession, is now available on Amazon. Inside, I break the process down into 5 clear steps to help you exit on your terms with confidence, full compensation, and your client's best interests at heart. You can also visit totalsuccession.com/podcast to download a free starter guide that walks you through my SPACE framework: see, prepare, act, commit, exit. Remember, you only exit your business once. Create the space to do it well. Thanks for listening. Until next time.